Hello, everybody. Cuckoo, and welcome to the Circle NSFW. I'm your host, Cuckoo. Hi, Kim. Yeah, that's a very useful greeting. I plan to continue to use it. I don't know. Does it just mean hi? Do you know what it is exactly, Tim?
I have no idea. I think it's specifically French. I think it's
right, but I seem to have adopted anyway. So, cuckoo.
Well, I think we should all adopt it. You know,
absolutely
embracing the slightly nonsensical. So it's back to my world of Edward Lear, cuckoo, the world of nonsense. Cuckoo slightly.
So, and I am joined, of course, by Professor Tim Wilson, the fan favorite from the season 2 of Circle UK. How are you doing today, Tim?
I'm doing incredibly well. Incredibly well. I hesitate to say, but I think I'm thriving in lockdown.
There are definitely people like that, right? And I am to a certain extent also. I feel like I'm living my best life because every evening there are all of these shows and lectures and all, for which I don't even have to leave my home, right? I don't even have to put on pants, right?
It's true. Yeah, the other side of the Atlantic, we've got the National Theatre being streamed. They're not always streaming the best shows. They streamed a horrible adaptation of Jane Eyre the other day, which is unwatchable. But they also streamed the Servant of Two Governors, which was so refreshing and so lovely. And I think Frankenstein is coming up in a day or so, and it's just a feast of these things. I don't seem to watch very much television at the moment. I seem to be constantly working. I'm doing little films which I'm sticking on YouTube about Edward Lear. In fact, I'm aiming to go through all the Edward Lear limericks visually.
Oh, okay, yeah. Awesome.
With my own take. I'm just working today on a limerick about there was a young lady from Russia.
Okay.
And the obvious rhyme from Russia in Russia. So she does screaming. And no one could hush. It's an opportunity to draw all those things I resisted for so long when I was living in Russia. And in fact, yesterday was the anniversary. One of my friends, the person who arranged it, was the anniversary of my first exhibition in Russia, which I did a year ago. And,
okay, so what was the exhibition of what? Of your drawings?
Of my drawings, yes. And
I didn't know that you had an exhibition.
Oh, I have exhibitions all over the place. I had some in Oxford, and I can't think where else, but definitely in Russia, and it was my first exhibition in Russia. I was very excited about it, and I couldn't go to the opening. In fact, I never saw it because I was working for a company, and they suddenly decided I had to go to Armenia, and I said, but I've got an exhibition tomorrow. Said, oh, you're going to Armenia today? And cars, and off I went, and that was it really.
Yeah.
And Armenia is lovely.
I'm sure. So now, I'm sure we spoke about this a bit when we discussed Brazil, but you talked about, you said, you feel like you are flourishing, and it seems like, I'm just thinking when I watched you when you were on the Circle, right? You were always drawing. It did not seem that you had any difficulty, amusing yourself. And I'm the same way. I don't understand why people were talking, how difficult it is. And it's what your filming schedule was about 3 weeks. How long were you in that apartment?
Four weeks.
Okay.
A little bit of time in advance, I think. So it was just over 4 weeks.
But even so, if you put me in a nice apartment and you bring me groceries and all you want me to do is sit around and do jigsaw puzzles and knit and cook, and that to me sounds like a fantastic vacation.
Yes, I think there's one thing I missed in the Circle. I missed the opportunity of sort of being able to hit the phone and get people. So I missed that contact, and I think I don't think I'm a natural hermit. I think I think I sort of can wax theological here a little, right? But I think I fall into that category of needing the time in the desert before going back into the town. So as long as I know I'm going back into the town, I'm happy with the desert.
Right.
The problem now is that we don't know when we're going back into the town.
Right.
We don't know when the lockdown is going to be over or if it's going to occur again. and
Right.
that's a little bit alarming. Now I remember when I got to the last 2 or 3 days in the circle, I got a little bit sort of gate happy, like prisoners when they're just about to be released from their. I don't know whether you know very many prisoners who are about to be released from their prison. But
I've known a few. I have friends. I'm a retired attorney, so.
Are you really? So you do know
Yes.
all about it. And
yes.
they get a bit wild, and it's a slightly alarming time. And they can then do stupid things, and then suddenly find their sentence is extended.
Right.
Because they've got a little bit sort of gate happy. And
right.
I remember not feeling gate happy, but feeling immensely frustrated. And because I had got my timings wrong, because we didn't have watches or any form of clocks or any form of real guidance as to what the time was or what the schedule was,
right.
I thought that we had another 2 or 3 days. So I was thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to be able to bear another 2 or 3 days of this madness? And so I was so relieved when suddenly we were whisked off to the table to meet all the other people.
Right.
There was
I believe also your season was longer, right? Because it had more episodes and more contestants, I think, than any of the others.
It was longer than the first season. I think it's been longer than both of the Netflix seasons. And this French Netflix season was only 12 episodes, which seems, they seem to have had it very, very cushy, really.
Right. So they may have. It'll be interesting to see when they do the UK again.
I was 22 episodes, so
right.
That's 22 broadcast episodes. But there were days. I think we only broadcast for 6 days out of a week.
Right.
So we were in lockdown for longer.
Right. No, and I'm saying clearly it's not easy. And like you said, there is a huge difference between going in and saying, okay, I'm doing this for a month and the rest of the world is out there and I will be able to go back to it, versus this. Obviously the uncertainty is very difficult, but I have found it very interesting to see the people who even within a day or two were just losing their minds, right? Because they couldn't go out and be with a crowd of people right now.
Yes, right. Absolutely. But I think there is a recipe, and I think those of us who've done it, we have a sort of moral duty to impart that recipe. The key is to find diversion in yourself. So the key is not to be dependent on Netflix or other people to provide your entertainment. The key is to set your mind to the idea, to set goals that I'm going to do something creative. Not I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something creative. That element of creativity is so important in isolation.
Well, why do you think I started this podcast, right? This all started where right about the time that this was starting to happen, Johnny invited me to be on a podcast with him. And then he wanted me, so this was for the Circle US. And then when they were going to start airing Brazil, he didn't particularly want to watch it, but he wanted me to cover it. And quite frankly, if I were having my normal schedule, it would have been difficult. But I think I did not make a deliberate decision of, I need a new creative outlet. Let me start a podcast. But I certainly think that it has helped me getting through this period. Yeah. I think either you are the kind of person who is comfortable in your own company or you're not.
Yes.
Yes. And if
but I see myself both as highly gregarious and at the same time as very comfortable with seclusion.
Oh yeah, no, it doesn't mean that you are not social, because clearly you are a very social person. But like you said, in chunks, right? And then you need, like you said, to withdraw and kind of, have some time alone before you can go out and be gregarious again.
Yes. And I was literally for 4 weeks, I think, or 3 weeks, maybe 3.5 weeks. I was literally on my own. Maybe more than that. Well, Najati, how long were you away?
None of us know even what. No one knows what day it is anymore, Tim.
Sitting over there and being utterly mute. He's thinking, I'm not here. You mustn't refer to me.
All right.
More than 4 weeks. Literally, I was on my own because he was stuck in Dubai. And then
he's back.
Yeah, he's back.
But he's made it back. Oh,
Hello.
meet him once of these days. I'm glad he made it home. All right, so let's talk about the circle, because that probably is mostly what people came for. So when we start, sorry,
have we got some people watching yet? I can't see at my end.
We don't necessarily, even if there are a few people in the chat, but we get most of, first of all, even if somebody is listening, they're not necessarily in the chat. And then most people tend to go back and listen to the audio version rather than sitting down and watching the video.
Pause and isolate my peccadillos.
Don't worry, Tim. You will definitely have an audience. You in particular, you get us good numbers.
Peccadillos as well. I would definitely put my foot in it. I found a little bit of film that I did with Freddie Bentley the other day, and I put it up on Instagram yesterday. And he said, "Oh, you've almost put your foot in it there." And I found myself, oh, there's a lot of it about. I remember there was a wonderful little musical song about that. There's a lot of it about. And yes, if there's an opportunity of putting my foot in it, I will.
Well, and that's what always happens. You have a live broadcast, anything can happen. But if we go back, so when we started at the beginning of episode 9, right at the end of episode 8, they were just about to vote, and we were told that there's going to be a rules change. That there's this, rather than having our 2 influencers, we are just going to have the super influencer, which we have seen in other iterations of the show, where whoever gets the most votes, or the most points rather, will be the super influencer. They decide alone who to block. They can do this anonymously, and they do it in person.
Now, I found that point there. They can do it anonymously. That was the thing which stood out for me about this little moment. First of all, are we allowed to say who the super influencer was?
Yes, please.
Okay, so it was Romain, and I have problems with him.
Okay. Tell me, what's your problem?
I don't find him terribly appealing, or at least I didn't find him very appealing until I finally got through to episode 12, when suddenly he blossomed and became everything he could have been. Somehow I didn't see that in the episodes that came before. Now, I have rushed through the episodes, and I really concentrated today only on the last 4 episodes. I don't know whether you feel that this has been a feature of the whole thing. I feel that there was such an effort from every single member of the every single contestant to win, that they seem to have forgotten two major features. Number one, that this is a popularity contest, and therefore they need to be liked. And number 2, and not only liked by the people playing the game, also liked by the audience watching them. And number 2, they seem to have forgotten about catfishing almost completely. So what this has done is to make it, if anybody hasn't watched all of this, and they think, oh my goodness, I've only got 1 hour available, what can I watch on Netflix? I'm telling you now, the episode to watch is the one episode that I wouldn't bother watching in the Brazilian series, because we know what's happened. Actually, the series are much the same sort of thing, despite Emma Willis. There's really no point in that last episode, because you know what's happened. But in this particular case, that last episode is riveting, because it's a game changer.
Oh, it is. And even for me, I mean, obviously we knew, the situation, we knew that, that Roma, I call him Roma. I am horrible at pronouncing these French names. So Valeria calls him Ro, so I will do the same. That obviously he is, it seems, developing feelings for this character.
Yes, I thought that was a lovely thing. We have seen that before, of course, in episode 1 in the British series.
Oh yeah,
and Alex.
Yes,
but rather more spectacularly, and in fact, the response here, we will come to that and deal with that in more detail when we get to episode 12. at this point in episode 9, Romain is still playing the field a little bit and trying to be liked, but he is so mechanical about it, and so sort of he's making so many decisions that I think that sort of alienates him a little bit from me, the viewer, and I found that tough to deal with.
I see, it's interesting because I did like him, but also my guest last week also did not seem to think much of him really as a character, or especially as a player. And it was just interesting because her perspective was so different from mine. But as I continued to watch, it is pretty clear that that Valeria is the brains of the operation in terms of that relationship.
Yes. And as you move into the final episodes, Romain becomes really very unpleasant, and then switches back, and switches back into something that he could have been all along. And I think the real Romain is sort of emerges in that final episode. But Valeria is sweet, isn't he?
Yes.
Really? Oh, sorry, Maxime.
Maxime, yes.
I don't think he's as sweet as many other people who played that role. I think he's also very much playing the game.
Yes. Yes.
And that comes up. There are moments where he rants. I find it fascinating how he takes against Inez.
Okay, what do you mean? Elaborate, please. Well, we're going to get there. Let's.
He says, "Hate her." And that comes as a great surprise, because he's such sort of affable. He's projecting such an affable character. Where does this come from? There are no half measures in this cast. They either hate somebody or they love somebody. There's no moderation here. And
well, I think it's a highly. I mean, well, you can tell me better than because I'm sorry, good cat. You've had the experience, right? I would think that being in this situation, and I've seen this on it trope in reality TV generally, that you get all these people who seem to be so upset, either very, very happy or very, very not happy about things that we can look at a viewer and say, that we question the reactions. But I think that when you are in the moment, right, being filmed for a show, everything is heightened.
Everything is heightened. But I think this is why I think it's so important to ground yourself and to cling on to some sort of self-reality. And at the moment, the Circle is putting out feelers for new contestants for the next series. For series 3 in the UK and for the series 2 of the US show. Yes. I don't know whether they're doing feelers for for Brazil and France. I expect they probably will. And people are calling me and saying, "What should I do?" And what did you do? And I have to confess, I didn't do anything. I was approached, so I didn't make an appeal. I didn't. It really wasn't on my horizon in any way at all. And I was telephoned out of the blue, and I'm delighted I was. And the person who telephoned me really ought to be given a top job, because he got it right, I think.
Right. But they were approaching you based on, you think, on your political career? Like, how did they find you? Do you know?
I don't know, because I assume they found me through YouTube. But when I asked them about YouTube, they didn't know anything about it. So I have absolutely no idea how they found me or what they wanted me to do. I have a suspicion they didn't expect me to be in the program for very long. I think my own thought was that I would go crashing out in day 1 or day 2, and I got 2 reasons for this. Right. The first reason is that I think I'm not a typical reality TV person. And I know nothing about it.
Definitely not.
I'm learning so much now.
Right.
And I don't fit that mold. I don't really know what to do. And number 2, I made a suggestion that I could bring one of my cats, and they thought this was a good idea, and it happened. But James, who played Sammy,
Yeah.
is profoundly allergic to cats.
Oh, okay.
And actually had an allergic reaction simply because I was in the same building.
Really?
Well, I think
that's a serious allergy, because obviously I have friends also who can't come into my home for that reason, but it never occurred to me that somebody in the apartment next door could have a problem.
I think the problem may lie in the fact that I was an influencer so many times. I was moving it with my dressing gown covered in cat hairs to the influencing room, and scattering cat hairs in the influencing room and on the table. And then James was going to the same place and and inhaling all this dander. Yeah. And I just don't think they thought this would be an issue, because I don't think they expected me to be that successful or me to be there for that long. So I mean, they then started to take measures, and they made sure the people who delivered things to my flat didn't deliver things to James's and various other things. I know of that.
Right.
So they started to quarantine me a little bit more.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're just practicing for this contactless delivery.
Yeah, I had experience of social distancing as well.
Yes.
And what was so lovely in my case was when it came to the meeting at the table, I had to be cleaned,
before the final meeting, you're saying in the final episode,
rollers and things, and get all these cat hairs off my and I think I had 3 or 4 assistants doing this.
Just cleaning the cat off of you.
All of them completely mute because they don't want to break that moment. So I felt like an Egyptian pharaoh. And this on the last day when we went to the final live program. So I was cleaned twice. My partner would be so pleased that I was cleaned at all.
Well, we only see that in the UK though, because of the strict rules that they have in the rabies. Right, you can't bring a dog or a cat into the UK, right, without a very long quarantine.
It's quite true. Yeah.
Right. Because I enjoy the pets. I mean, I love the turtle. The turtle was fabulous, and having a baby there.
Ellen's turtle was so lovely, and I also think, if you want to go onto one of these programs, if you do have a pet or something, it's a wonderful way of taking of moving from abstract to something more concrete. So you have to articulate your ideas, and you can articulate them to another being. And I thought I could talk to Bay. In fact, Bay wasn't really very interested, so the idea wasn't fully realized. But what Bay did was want a lot of attention, yes. And that took that sort of stress away from me, because if I'm stressing about the cat, I'm not stressing about me.
Right.
And I did.
Yeah, no, I think, and even just having an animal to pet, like I said, because of the isolation and the stress of the show, I do think it makes a huge difference if you bring something or someone with you.
Woody also had his dog. He had his wooden dog.
Right.
That I think was a prop from the show, and in fact he took it home with him. And he was using his wooden dog exactly as I thought I could use Bay to talk to.
Yeah, well, we've definitely seen contestants from several series, right? Except that some of them, I mean, Gabriel seems to have latched onto a pillow, right?
Oh, yes.
He's hugging that pillow as if he were a stuffed animal. Every time there's it makes sense. Again, these people are under a lot of stress. We're not under stress watching them, but obviously they are stressed.
Yes, I don't think Gabriel should know that in Britain, is it a pillow hugger or a pillow biter? I think it's a pillow biter. It's not pillow hugger. Has a slightly specific meaning.
Oh, okay. So you actually know some slang that I don't know, but it's British apparently.
I think pillow biting is a reference to being gay.
Interesting.
and to taking a rather passive position.
And then make you pillow, but only for gay people. Okay, interesting. I learned something.
For gay people, I don't know the intricacies of all these things. I can barely manage with one gender. There's a little joke. I can barely manage with a gender.
All right. So where were we? Okay. So Ro is the influencer. He gets to decide alone who to block. Yeah. So he goes through the cast. But it's not surprising that that he settles on Ines, right? Because she was she was not very open about wanting to get rid of him. I misspoke. Gary was very open about the fact that Ines wanted to get rid of him.
Yes.
So I discussed this again with my guest last week, but what do you think about these videos that one makes when they are, blocked? And should there be limits? I mean, should production feel responsible for what happened, or is this on Ines and Gary for not discussing how they're going to spin this for the rest of the cast?
Yes, exactly. Production has its production is well aware of what's going on, so nothing is a complete accident.
Right.
And the shows acquire life with drama.
Right.
Now, I think if I were producing this show, I would have been looking for any drama I could find, because I think it was in short supply, because everybody was so desperate to win. The actual drama and the human relationships were limited. And each time you thought there was a human relationship developing, it was then squashed by this desperation to win. Again, I think if somebody were to approach me and say, what would they want to do if they wanted to go onto the circle, I'd say, just forget about the money. Because the money, in fact, I made a note of this. Now, where was it now? Somebody says, we're all in it to win. To win the money or something. Right. If one of the girls says this, I think it might be the Virginie.
Yeah, Virginie. Yeah.
And I just thought, oh, well, everyone here, everyone is here to win. Right. Everyone here has one thing to win, and it's simply not true. It's simply not. And I know that I had no intention of winning.
Right. You just wanted to do it for the experience?
No, I was very comfortable being in it. I didn't think I was winning material. Right up to the end, I just didn't think that was possible. I'm also inclined to think that Woody had the same opinion. And
and Woody, again, if you want to look at the characters that after the first episode one might think were not going to be around for long. Again, Woody, just because he's 18 years old, right? He's a baby, but obviously he's very much an old soul. The same, like I said, he didn't behave like an 18-year-old.
No,
right? He behaved like a peer to the other contestants, and they kind of took him under their wings.
He behaved like my peer. He behaved like someone my age,
right?
In many ways, and he was very confident.
But in general, again, especially now, when reality TV kind of first was getting started, there were many people who would discuss, all the different reasons they would do it. Whereas now, I mean, there are exceptions, of course. I mean, you're one of them, and there are others. But generally, the draw, I would say, is the money.
Well,
and people don't come unless they feel like they could win.
But what that does is it skews the drama of the production, and it means what you're looking at is a lot of greedy people trying to get to that cash prize, and it's not attractive. When we've suddenly got that cash prize in view, suddenly all that guard goes down, and we actually have the sort of drama that we should have had from the very beginning.
But there really shouldn't be such a difference in the sense that, like you said, it's a popularity contest. So I feel like one should be behaving in the way that they believe will make them more popular, right? And then indirectly, of course, if everybody likes you, then you get the money. But this is this what you're saying? But in terms of being so direct about it,
to be it's just unattractive to watch that. I think, and it's not that the money isn't there. It's not that the money wouldn't be gratefully received. There are other things which should be at the forefront. Simply right down to the name of the show. It's The Circle. It's about reciprocity. It's about friendship. About being popular in a group.
And it was interesting that the French cast started using this hashtag, the Circle Family.
Yes.
But to me, it was kind of both a sword. It's been used as a sword and a shield, right? Who is the Circle Family? Is the Circle Family everybody, or is the Circle your family?
Yeah. So what we had by the time we got to episode 9, we had two emerging groups. It was very, very clear.
Right.
But what was extraordinary was, in contrast to my series of The Circle, where one group didn't know the other group existed.
Right.
Woody, myself, and Ella had no idea that the other group existed, or that there was a group. In the French Circle, they both seemed to know that these two groups existed, and they were sort of plotting in those final episodes to get various people to join them.
Right. Well, because it does make sense, is that if you have
tactically,
sorry,
tactically,
yeah.
It's just dull watching it, I'm afraid. And it's interesting. The American Circle was much more tactical than the British Circle. And once I got used to that, that was fine. I could deal with that.
Right.
The Brazilian Circle was just on an entirely different level. And I found that I found it very odd. The French Circle, in many ways, it's got things I can actually access a lot more than the Brazilian Circle. At the same time, it's got this edge where there's a sort of avariciousness.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems for you, and it was more of an issue with Brazil. There was a bit of this in France, but like you said, but then it was kind of swept under the rug and went away. In terms of, it seems like, right, that you are not entertained by people who are being too unpleasant to each other.
No, for example, Ocean's 11 bores the pants off me. And I'm just not interested in a heist movie, particularly not one that works. If it doesn't work, I'm rather entertained. But this is this has all the elements of a heist. It's slightly unattractive.
But even like your reaction, like you said that you said you have actually never finished watching your season of The Circle.
No.
For anybody who did not see your other appearance here, because just what Richard Madeley, the things that he was saying to you, just made you so uncomfortable that you turned it off and never turned it back on.
Absolutely, in fact, yes. Right. That was really the decisive thing. Yeah.
But whereas but on the larger scale of things that people have done to each other in the name of winning money on reality TV, that was really extremely mild.
I think probably it was. You're going to give me a much better education than I so far had. You're going to allow me to pump the dark recesses of the miry pit. That is reality TV. Yeah. Where all this entertainment come from? There's a bit of me which just thinks this is a little bit like encouraging people in the early Victorian period to go and watch the inmates of the madhouses at Bedlam.
Yeah.
And to pay to do that, to watch mad people.
Well, I would argue that the difference is that in that situation, right, the people who were being used for entertainment, were not consenting. They didn't even really, and they might very well have been mortified if they knew that people were viewing them in this way.
Yes,
Whereas everybody who goes into the circle, you know, they, again, maybe you didn't understand because you haven't watched a lot of this kind of TV. But I have a feeling that Richard Madeley knew very well, right,
yes,
the ways that people behave.
certainly there were things that came as a great surprise for me, or to me, and I don't think anybody has reassured me that these are things I would ever really want to countenance.
All right, but let's go. Yeah, so let's get through it. And again, the good thing with France is that there is a period of unpleasantness, but it doesn't last that long. I don't feel that it. It is even with Brazil. I didn't feel that it really ruined the season for me. It was there were certain periods, and then and then it was.
There were some things which I really loved about this series. So in the Brazilian version, there were twins,
right?
And I thought I thought that was terribly refreshing. You said there was certainly a lot of life within the circle itself. Yes. Here we had the two twins. We had the twins. Twins, yeah, and they were just wonderful.
Yes.
Every time they were on camera, they were utterly bewitching. I can't tell you which one was which.
Yeah, we had this conversation last week also, is that I would have loved, because it did seem that there was one who was more, that they had kind of divvied it up, that only one was composing the messages and the other one was kind of, right. But I was never able to figure out which was which, or again, if, every time they change clothes, right. And I've had friends who are twins and I haven't had any trouble telling them apart, but this set for whatever reason. Absolutely. So I feel badly just talking about the twins. I'd like to give them credit for what they did individually, but I just can't do it. I can't tell them apart.
I have various questions which I think you could probably answer, because I think they were in my flat.
It looks like it. It looks like it might have been your flat.
I feel a lot of kinship with and I feel very protective of them, and I'm really pleased they got through to the final. And I love. We'll come back to that again. Sorry, I'm anticipating the end. But I love the sliding around in water. I loved all the gags they did, running through paper.
Yes. Although as a mother, I'm just sitting there at a certain point where they are just spilling the popcorn everywhere, and they're just running around, and I'm like, you're going to fall.
Yeah,
go get a broom.
But what I loved was that the show then showed us a little scene a few minutes later of them mopping it up, and I just thought that was so endearing. They're terribly endearing. They're the most.
They are. They're very funny. They grew on me. I think I was a little negative at first, just possibly because there was also a set of identical twins in Brazil. So when they came on, I was really not very nice. It's not their fault, but I just felt like production was being lazy and just doing the same thing again. Yeah, but they're lovely. They're lovely. They're very funny.
A, they were produced so much better, and B, they were so much more animated and so much more sort of focused on the game, and they were naughty.
Right.
They were naughty. They came across to the other players as being malicious, which I thought was very strange, because they were the least malicious in the entire group of contestants.
But as you said, I think they were very open about the fact that they wanted the money. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Some people you seem to find it unseemly. So.
And I don't mind people who want the money. I just want them to want something else as well. And these two also wanted to just have fun, and they and they were clearly comfortable having fun together.
Yes.
And whenever they were sort of on screen together, that chemistry radiated. They kept me watching. Otherwise, I think I would have switched off.
I think it also does I do think that possibly having the two of them there really helped their game, because there have been other times where there have been two people playing together where it has not gone well. And in many cases, I felt like either one of them would have done much better than they would have done together.
At the beginning, why did they not succeed, I wonder?
Who is this that you're referring to?
The two ladies. What was their name?
Oh yeah, not Joe. I had that written down. I'll find it. But is it Joe but I know who you mean, right? The two ladies who played as Nicholas.
Yeah, Nicholas. That's it. Who played as Nicholas? Monique and Joe.
That's right. Right.
Well, because when they were introduced, they came across as being so delightful and slightly scatty and sort of and sort of slightly adversarial.
Mhm.
There's a confrontation between the two of them, which
Yeah.
could have made very good television, but they didn't seem to realize that.
Well, they said something, I think, up at the beginning when one of them was introducing herself. I think it was Monique, was saying that this is what they do. They kind of bicker, right? This is their friendship.
It wasn't bickering in reality. In reality, we
Right.
didn't have that, which would have been fun.
Right. But that might be why that might have been kind of their hook for casting, was not just that there were two of them, but that they did have, there was a certain amount of back and forth, but you're right, but they were not as entertaining as,
No.
they were trying to portray themselves as the odd couple, and they weren't really, but they were lovely. And I did think that, and Ro's reaction to them was also lovely.
Yes.
I'm glad that they showed that when they were showing clips at the end. Okay, we are all over the place here, and we are not covering anything that we should be talking about. So
we are focusing on the twins, but I have a question, and you were going to enlighten me.
Yeah.
Because maybe I just didn't pay attention. But were the twins, the two twins who play Nelia?
Yeah.
Were they sharing my bed? Where were they sleeping? Because that apartment isn't very big.
Yeah, no, I think one of them got the couch when they first came in, and there is a 2-bedroom apartment, right? Because Jack and Beth were in there, right? But there is one. But I think that Joe and Monique were initially in that apartment, and they just got blocked when Nelia was coming in, right? So they put them in a regular 1-bedroom. I believe that one is sleeping in the bed and one is sleeping on the couch.
I see.
But I was wondering, I was like, maybe they should get a second. If they're going to keep doing this, then they need more 2-bedroom apartments.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because I think having two people in the flat really helped.
Mm-hmm.
It really helps. Anyway, let's go on. Now I got another note here which I rather liked.
Okay.
About Gabriel's preference for Breaking Bad.
Yeah, we don't have to do this chronologically. So we already spoke about Nelia. So let's talk about Gabriel, about his preference for Breaking Bad.
I'm hoping he also stretches to shall we call Saul?
Yes.
Because
I love both of those shows. Huge fan.
Saul is one of the great inventions of modern television. He is simply delicious, and the lady who plays his now wife.
Yes.
Is that a plot spoiler? Is delicious as well. I just love them. I think they're one. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's fine. And you're always, when someone makes a wonderful television show, I at least am always leery when they want to do a spin-off or a prequel or whatever, because I think my fear was that they're going to ruin it, right? They're going to go back and somehow, retroactively ruin Breaking Bad, which could have happened, right? It's been known to happen in the past, but in this case,
of course, there could be a prequel to The Circle, couldn't there? It could be called The Square. It sounds Masonic. Are you on the square?
No, you'd have to go back, I think, and get them, as young children and put them all in. And how else would you do a prequel? Here are the twins. The twins are 8, right?
Yes.
They like to throw popcorn and run around in their underwear.
Yes. No. Anyway, that was lovely, and
right.
No. There was a scene. I had to close my eyes.
Which one? Which one?
Romance shaving.
Yes.
I just find the whole notion of shaving so unpleasant. You will notice that.
Yes.
So I had to trim it myself with a pair of scissors, which sort of I almost sort of I almost had a little moment, and I still don't think I got it quite right, but I just find it so unpleasant, and this scene went on and on and on.
Well, again, you have a different perspective, right? Most men do shave. I mean, I certainly would not want to put a straight razor next to my face, right? But that's just me.
Well, I think so it's me and half the population.
Right.
that's a significant a significant part of the viewing public who just don't want to see these things happening. Just get them off the television. Beard trimming and shaving, not for haemophiliacs, not for ladies.
Right.
Not for,
Oh, now I just noticed something here that I don't know that I even picked up on this when I was preparing for this. That when Roro blocks Ines,
yes.
right? Because we have been discussing, and we will obviously discuss more, the fact that Roman did not seem to have any indication that Valeria was not who she seemed to be.
Oh, no,
but
no,
others did, and I see now that when Ines was being blocked, she said Valeria is a dude.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Which reacts to the cake.
Oh,
and I think
that one up. Yes, she did.
Right. And Gabriel also says it later.
Yeah.
But I guess, again, was that just a psychological defense mechanism that he was?
That was a translation thing. But I didn't pay attention to it. But yes, you're quite right. That's exactly what they were saying.
Right. So he was warned. He just was not able, for whatever reason, to listen to and incorporate the warnings, which again can happen in real life too, right? You're dating somebody, and people in your life are telling you they're not good for, and you kind of dismiss it. And sometimes it turns out that they were right. So it happens. But I did find it interesting to go back because on the one hand, I think Valeria played an absolutely amazing game. And we'll talk about that more. But to the extent that he was able, so by the time we get to the end of this game, we've got 3 catfishes among our 5 contestants. Sorry?
Are we functioning? I think my
yeah, you froze for a minute. Are you back?
Am I back again now? I am back again now.
You're going in and out. Okay. But it seems that there was but despite that, and we definitely saw that people were not so sure about Gabriel and Nelia. But I was going to say, but of the final 5, did anybody suspect Valeria?
No, except for Gabriel is still there.
That's right, Gabriel did. Okay, so there were people who did. But as somebody who, my brand has always been to be very leery of the idea of playing as a catfish, I just have to say that, again, Valeria did an absolutely amazing job.
100%. But I mean, he explains at the end how much effort that required.
Right.
And I think anybody who's playing as a catfish has a problem.
Right. And I feel like the only way that that Maxime was able to be so successful, and again, maybe this has to be kind of the footnote to my normal spiel about how difficult it is to play as a catfish, is that if you really know, it can either be a real person or an imagined character, but either way, Valeria, you have to know that person inside and out to be able to do it successfully.
And Maxime was playing his girlfriend.
Right. And even with Sam, when James was playing Sammy, because his mother, he had a single mother. So he felt that he had some insight, but not nearly to the same extent. No, and we talked right before, and that Sammy was kind of not a deeply realized character for that reason. And I would argue that generally a catfish is not going to be a deeply realized character. But in Valeria's case, I mean, he approached this as a method actor.
Yep.
Right.
And as a result, what we're going to come to, because I think the majority of our conversation has to focus on episode 12. But there were 2 things which I thought were interesting before we leave episode 9. Number 1 was Gabriel's comment that they're not marionettes.
Sorry, say it again. Again, you're dropping in and out, sometimes just for a second.
I'm so sorry. Gabriel was saying that he made some comment about we are not marionettes.
Yes.
He was, and I think this is with reference to the fact that he was feeling that he was being controlled by other players.
Interesting. But again, so what does that mean, though? I mean, if you feel like somebody is controlling your gameplay, right, then the first answer is, well, don't let them do that.
You can't stop that. This is the point. And unless you recognize that is going to happen, that you are a marionette, and that you are being played not only by these characters you can't see, but also by the production.
Right.
You are part of a much wider game, and you cannot see it. You can you have insight into bits of it, but you cannot see the full thing. So therefore, you have to recognize that you are going to be played.
Right.
And
Well, you're saying both by production and by the other players. I would say obviously production is playing you, but the fact that your competitors are playing you, that is something that is your job to.
And if there are any public votes, you're being played by the public as well. You cannot control that. So if somebody wants to go into a game like the Circle, they have to relinquish that sense of control, because to try and control what is uncontrollable, that way lies madness.
Right.
Now, this then drifted into a game, La Vérité, the truth game.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get on the table. So let's just make sure we've covered everything for episode 9. So when Ines goes home, right?
Yeah.
She said specifically that she didn't let get any info to the super influencer, which I found interesting, because then she did that specifically so that nobody else's game would be hurt. Because I felt like, again, so we kind of brought this up, but I'm not sure we put it to bed. Obviously production can control this, right, with these goodbye messages, because they're not done live, right? They are taped. And so production could just say, no, you can't say that.
And then edited.
Right.
So,
but they're allowing it. And as you said, they're probably allowing it because it creates drama.
Mm-hmm.
But lots of things that create drama, there's a fine line between, you want to create drama, but you also want to be fair, because this is a game for $100,000 or thereabouts. So do you feel the production should not have allowed people like Gary to say things like this? Should it have been edited out, or no?
Oh, no. Production, if you don't have producers doing their job and stirring the fire, really you don't have a show.
Right. So you're saying, so in a case like this, that Ines and Gary should have, as part of that meeting, then, because if players are allowed to do things like this and deliberately or not tank somebody else's game, then I would argue that as part of that meeting, when you go out and you meet somebody who's still in the game, one of the things that I feel like you have to discuss is, okay, what are you going to say in your video?
Right? Yeah. Now, in some cases, I think the video is made before you go and meet people.
Right.
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Interesting.
And of course, it didn't happen to me. I was never blocked.
But it has to be like when Gary definitely is. Well, I don't remember if Gary was speaking specifically about anything that he shared with Ines in the meeting versus just generally. I have to go back and watch it again. But it's funny. You seem to be taking the other side of this, which is it's fine. It creates drama. I was very upset. Like there have been a couple times also in the US version where, again, I don't want to spoil too much, but I was very upset that someone who I felt like had a very solid game was just blown up by somebody on the way out. And so with Gary was actually, it was, an ally, and I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose. Whereas what happened to Karen in the Circle US was very deliberate.
Karen, who was Karen? Which was?
The African-American woman. Very funny.
Oh, Mercedes.
She was playing Mercedes, yes.
Yeah, I know her as Mercedes. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. It's very hard to keep it right. But okay, no, it's like I said, I'm coming around to the idea that this might not just be a mistake on production's part. This might be a deliberate decision, and if it isn't, it's fine. Then you just have to take it into account when you're playing your game.
Exactly. It's not. These are the chess moves that you cannot control. But these are just some of them. There are so many other chess moves that are beyond your control because you can't even see them, and that's part of the game. That is the game. That you can't see these people that you're playing with.
But clearly, there are things you can control. If you can't control anything, then it's no longer a game.
Yeah, you can control, and I think it's possible to control production if you're clever.
Oh no, it's been done. It has definitely been done.
You'd have to play along. You would have to know you'd have to intuitively know where they were going and then follow it. You can't change them. You can't.
Right.
You can't take on an entire machinery. That there's 70 odd people.
Right. No, I don't think you can control that, but I have seen people control certain parts of the game. For example, like by not, now this doesn't really happen so much with the circle because they see everything that you
Yes.
do. But we've seen it in other shows where they have these interviews. Again, I'm not even sure which other seasons series you've seen, where that they get interviewed by a producer and we see these little talking heads on the screen. And there have been people who, and they will ask you, and I see what happens also in the circle. I mean, you had this meeting every day, I've heard, which again, we never saw, but you're discussing with production what you're doing and who you want to speak to and why, etc. So I guess this could be done in the circle also. Let's say that you just don't trust production, right? And so what I've seen people do this is you don't really even tell production the truth about what you're thinking and who you're targeting. And to me, that shouldn't be necessary, right? Because you should be able to trust production enough.
With my hand on my heart, the show that I observed and was part of, that wouldn't work.
Okay.
And for example, the one or two people in my series who did seem to resist production,
yeah,
had a very tough time, because you just can't fight against the way the world is going like that.
But what exactly? I mean, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, like what kinds of things did you see of people trying to fight production?
I didn't see anything, of course.
Or even you heard about it after. Whatever.
Heard since. One of the problems is when people come in late, it's very, very difficult for them to establish an identity.
Right.
So what was so refreshing about the French production here is that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the original 8. So you've only got 3 of the original 8 in the final show. Right. Which is different, I think, to all of the other series.
Right. Well, and have we discussed this in the past? Because, I feel like it is a huge, and this might just be an issue with the way the game is structured. It does seem to be a huge disadvantage if you go in late, and the later you go in, obviously, like, I don't think that, Virginie, she tried, but I'm just not sure there's anything she could have done. So what do you think of that, about the whole way the game is structured and the people coming in late? What would be your answer to that?
She was adversarial.
I'm sorry, again, I lost you again.
She was adversarial.
Right.
And in contrast, I compare her to Ella in season 2 in Britain.
Right.
Who came in late and was simply charming. I mean, it backfired on her in a way because she was accused of saying yes to everybody. But by not being adversarial, she embraced the spirit of the circle far more and was able to enter into it in a much deeper way.
Right. So it's not just, right, so, but just in general, these people who go into the game, not just only at the beginning, but well past the halfway point.
Yeah.
Again, is there any way around that? And how can you play your way out of that other than just trying to play a very good game? Like I said, is it a different game? Should Ella have played differently?
It's a different game. So if you think your strength is to be adversarial, you have to be in at the beginning. If, on the other hand, you have this extraordinary vivacity and bounciness, you could afford to be going in a little bit later. But you've then got to get that personality across, not only to the circle, but also to the viewers at home. So you've got 2 jobs to do.
Right.
With time against you.
Right.
And at the same time, you've got to spend a bit of time adjusting to the fact that you're in this new world and working out the rules, because then you're not told about these rules before you go in.
I was going to say, so what did they tell you and not tell you?
They didn't tell me anything.
Nothing? They just put you in the apartment and say, here you go, and we will be in touch.
They did tell me there were some rules about what I could and couldn't do. But at some point in the process of my going in, I don't think they ever gave me those rules. So I never thought them out. I don't think anybody went through them with me. So I had to sort of work out what they were, because there are various times when somebody said, "Oh, you can't do that. That's against the rules." And I thought, well, I've never seen any rules.
Right, but in terms of when you going in, did you even understand? Did you know basically that there were going to be 8 people in different departments, and there will be, I mean, or did they really just not tell you anything? Because some
No,
people do seem to react to certain of these, in a way that makes me think that they just weren't told certain things, or they weren't paying attention.
I'd seen the first episode, so I knew a certain amount. I
Mhm.
didn't know how many apartments would be filled,
Right.
and I didn't know. I mean, there are various other contestants who insisted that they were working out where we were, um, mostly by my blowing the Alpine horn and making a lot of noise. Um, Ella was particularly bad at this. She identified that I was on the same floor as her, I think, and that I was
So
sort
I
of,
guess that the soundproofing, because supposedly they improved the soundproofing. Apparently, that the whole reason that they moved to the second building and retrofitted and everything was just that apparently with Freddie screaming, that they thought that they had soundproofed the first time, but they had not Freddie proofed. So that they said that they said that they had done additional soundproofing. But what you're
yeah.
saying is that it still wasn't 100%, that there were certain things that could still be heard.
I didn't hear a thing.
Right.
So
Well, that's because Ella didn't come in with a whatever that was that you were playing.
yeah, but equally, I didn't. Uh, I didn't realize that we were literally on top of each other.
Interesting. Yeah, you would think that they would have put them, they would have put you a little bit further apart,
Well,
put you on different floors or different.
we wouldn't have known, but we were in fact literally stacked on top of each other,
Interesting.
like playing cards. We were so close to each other; it was absurd.
Right. Well, we've seen that some in France, like at least when I guess we have seen a few shots of, right. It does seem that they put everybody on one side of the building, and so that they're actually to get these shots from the outside where you can look into the apartments, and there have been times where you can see that someone is here and someone is. It seems to be even right next door or directly above or something
I
like that.
Yes, I don't think they did that in our series. I don't think
No,
that.
no, this is a new thing. It's just more of an establishing shot kind of thing.
Yeah, we have seen a lot more establishing shots,
Right.
and people closing their curtains.
Right.
You,
Yeah, we see a lot of that.
same time. I don't know whether that's a little bit of jiggery pokery in post production, or whether they really did get people closing curtains at exactly the same time. But
Right.
I thought it was quite interesting.
Well, I actually looked this up because it seems if you are looking when they are, in their living rooms playing, it always seems as if it's night outside. And I was not just at the end of the day, but if you just kind of went any point in the game, I have not, and maybe again, maybe you have to close the shades just because of the light issue. But I actually looked this up, and I'm saying, are they playing this entire game at night? And then I looked it up because they did film this around November, December, maybe early January. And so I actually looked this up thanks to the internet, and I found out that the sun sets in Manchester at this time of year before 4 p.m.
Absolutely, and
So
and a
that
lot,
might be part of it. That might be why you have all of these shots of people closing the blinds.
a
For what
lot of acting took place very late. One of
did
the
they? I was
one of,
so that was that also the case in your season? Like what?
yeah,
Because you didn't have a watch. I mean, I understand. Obviously, they're not going to give you a newspaper, but you could not have access to the time.
no, not at all. And days disappeared very quickly. But
Right.
but one of the cast had a set of kitchen scales, which
Mhm.
oddly had a time machine on it. And so this particular contestant did in fact have access to the time briefly before the kitchen scales were taken away.
Oh, they did figure it out, because that was going to be my question would be what if anything would you wish that you had smuggled in? Things like
Uh,
that. Not something that's going to change the game. I'm not trying to cheat and win the game, but I'm saying like for me, I would find it very discombobulating to not know what time it is.
no, I would like to have smuggled in um, a watch, possibly
Hmm.
my partner, um,
Hmm.
and I don't think he would have liked that. But he could have been hidden in a bag in the corner somewhere. just come
Right.
out.
Well, we have seen again on another show on Survivor, we have seen people do things like make jewelry out of fish hooks, right? So that they could then use the fish hook in the game to catch fish, right? You're not allowed to bring in fish hooks, but one of the contestants was a jewelry designer.
Oh
Yes.
my,
And so she made a bracelet out of fish hooks.
how clever.
And
Well, no,
she did get caught, but that's what made me ask.
I was
Like,
determined to take paper in
uh-huh,
and drawing equipment. I also took an animation board in with me,
right.
and they only let me have that, I think, in the last week. And I thought, well, by this point, if I start drawing some animation, I'm never going to get it finished. It'd be so frustrating.
Right.
I had initially thought I could start doing a piece of animation and draw it, and it would gradually continue. And as the show goes on,
Right.
you'll get a piece of animation that
would have been right.
drawn in front of your eyes, and that would have been fun. But in fact, in the finished edit, I'm told you don't see me drawing very often anyway.
No, we saw a bit of it, but not so much. I've seen much more of it on your Instagram videos and things like that.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
we were aware that you were drawing, but we did not really get a glimpse because your drawings are amazing.
Yes. Well, I know I drew all the time. I thought one way of seeing into somebody's soul was to draw,
Mm-hmm.
and that was that was one way of working out whether or not somebody was being truthful. No,
wait, that's interesting though. So you're saying, so you were drawing not just to amuse yourself or whatever, but you see that when you draw somebody, you're saying that gives you insight into them as a person.
Oh yes.
Did you find it more difficult again to do this because
I found it very
because you didn't have the kind of inputs that you would normally have when you're
no. I found exactly what I thought would happen happened. I found it very difficult to draw the catfish.
Really?
Yeah, every time.
Whereas the people who weren't catfish, you had much less of a problem with.
Very quickly, except for Joyce. Joyce came out as a completely rounded character. I thought Joyce looked lovely. And really, the best picture I did was of Joyce, I think. Joyce and Mr. Farage, but you haven't had very many dealings with Mr. Farage in America. So
we're familiar. We know that he exists.
You're filled to the brim with Mr. Trump. There isn't really any room for Mr. Farage in America.
Right. Well, maybe one of them is enough. Okay, so we have Ines has gone home and Ro chats with and he does I think was the right thing, which is he immediately tells them that he was the super influencer.
Yeah, that I found extraordinary because that's the first time that's happened.
Right.
In all the other secret influencer, the secret influencer remains secret. And
right, but do you feel that because I feel like if you have close allies like this, I feel like it can be a good move. Do you think he should just not have said anything?
I think again it was very tactical. I think being a secret influencer by implication is something you don't say anything about. But I just thought it was very odd. It came across as very surprising. So as a result, I thought it was dramatically very, very exciting. I thought it was one of the best moments, and
right.
that is in episode 9, isn't it? Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah, but okay, and I guess for me, I feel like it's the sharing of the information because information is power in this game. That if you do feel like if you have you have obviously you can use the super influencer. This is what I would do personally if I were the super influencer. This would be my one chance to get rid of, one of my allies who I feel like could hurt my chances of winning.
Which effectively he did.
Right, but that's not how he looked at it. He didn't get rid of Ines. He got rid of Ines because she was looking to come after him. She was part of the other alliance. That's what was a more normal.
Wasn't the person he ought to have got rid of, which should have been Nelia?
Well, there's arguments for several different people he could have used, but I'm even saying he could have used this to get rid of Valeria or Alea, right? And then just not tell anybody that you were the super, and then you get off scot-free. And this is one person. I'm not saying it was the right thing to do because, again, those alliances and the way that the voting works. But to me, that's the real power of the super influencer. And as you said, normally people do keep it secret. And you can get rid of somebody who you never in a million years normally would be able to get rid of because again, the rest of the cast would feel, yes, you can go around and vote off your ally, but then nobody is going to like you or trust you.
Yes, absolutely. But equally, people are going to see this program, and they're going to realize, what a complete shit you are. It's not an attractive feature.
And again, and this is where you and I disagree. I feel like it's a game, right? You don't know these people. You've never met them before. There's a lot of money at stake. And so, yes, if I have to lie, cheat, and steal, I personally don't have a problem with it. I just don't.
I just see it as a microcosm of life, and I think it's such a wonderful social experiment, and I find it so disturbing that it can be hijacked by greed and nastiness. I find this very
well, because when it's a social experiment, but when you tie a large cash prize to it, right, then it stops being such. I mean, there have been shows again for a long time ago, and even recently there was a show called The Real World, where they just took a bunch of people from different walks of life and they put them in a house together, right? And there's no competition or anything like that. So that's a separate show. To me, is even though you create a world, all of these reality shows, they're about basically creating a little society. But in this society where you're not just making friends, you are also playing for a large cash prize, you're going to get different kinds of behavior. And I feel like there's certain things, just because I wouldn't do something to my friend in real life, doesn't mean that I necessarily feel that it's beyond the pale to do it in a game. Like, to me personally, if it's not against the rules of the game, then it's within the rules of the game.
You see, I think this is one of the reasons why I'm so useless at chess, because because I can certainly think 2 or 3 moves ahead. Mm-hmm. I'm quite comfortable with that. But I'm afraid I start to giggle. It's a sort of obvious tell. So whoever's playing against me knows that I've got a plan to win. I'm just way, and I think, well, it's just a game. Why would I want to win against my friend?
Because there's not because when there's $100,000 at stake, you might make a different decision about how badly you want to win against your friend.
Oh, I do hope not. I really hope not. $100,000 isn't so much, really. Well, it is for me. I mean, for me. But it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
No, I guess I find this fascinating just because, again, my perspective and the kind of the world in which I live with this reality TV, that this is, again, and it's not that these things never come up. There have been specific things said and specific moves that people have questioned whether it went too far. But the basic idea of fooling your friend, right, to win the money is something that we really don't even think so seriously about anymore. We just take it for granted. And so it's lovely to meet somebody who doesn't take it for granted.
Yes, I do. Well, I don't think I do. I just feel it's sort of. There's a bit of me which just think it's a bit mean, and there's an element of cheating about it. Oh
no, I understand what you're saying. I'm saying it's just lovely to find somebody who looks at this from such a different angle.
Whether there was money or whether there was not money in it, I don't think would determine the way that I played the game or would play the game in the future. I think another way of doing this would be to literally pay all the contestants a flat fee. So
right. Well, again, that would be, again, a very different game. Well, it wouldn't even be a game. Like, then you have the real worlds where you just put a bunch of interesting people into the circle and have them meet and interact.
And be popular. And that I think would be a very interesting game.
But so people would still get voted off?
Yes.
So at least, okay. But there wouldn't be any money at stake.
No. That is one option. Another option would be to make all the voting something which is done by the public, not by the people in the.
That's certainly an option, and they did do a bit of that in the UK. Again, they have the flexibility because that is the only series that is filmed in real time.
Yes,
right. That you can do these public votes, Now, how did you feel about that, though? Because again, that's another way of gumming up the works, and whatever your plan was for your game, right? Here's the public.
I would love to see more interaction with the public
Hmm.
in the show. For example, um, there are presenters of each of these games. I loved the French commentary, by the way,
Hmm.
throughout. I thought it was much more measured, much more charming than any of the other series so far.
And see, it's funny. I mean, again, and I like the snarky commentary, right? You might like France's better because it wasn't so mean.
It wasn't so mean. No, but it was sort of slightly ironic, and it was very, very French, I think. But
Yeah.
it was a completely different tone to what we'd had
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of the other series. But I would love to see I would love to see interaction with the host and the contestants. I would love to see
Right. So again,
maybe
so the UK did that and the other countries
the
did
UK.
not. And I'm assuming it's because it's on Netflix and they didn't want to have to release it in real time and all that.
But the UK
But
hasn't actually gone that far. I think it would be tremendously fun to
mhm.
to, to have guests visiting the apartments. Um,
Oh, you said people who are not part of the game, or well, you could
absolutely.
even have. I mean, it has been done. There have been shows again where they are being televised in real time, and that they have even had like online voting. That people could apply to be on the show in the middle of the show, and they would grab people from the general population and throw them in.
No,
That has been done.
I was thinking more like delivering the groceries or something. I could imagine myself sort of dolling myself up as Mrs. Doubtfire. Oh, hello, dear. Just coming along with a banana.
Oh, you're saying for previous for other, that has certainly also been known to happen, like in American Big Brother or in Canadian Big Brother, especially. They have a sponsor that's one of the fast food chains, and
Yeah.
so what they did was every week, somebody can win a meal, but they have this whole thing, right? They get it delivered by, like you said, somebody who's been a contestant on a previous iteration, and they put them in a uniform and all of that, and they get to pretend they work at Wendy's or whichever show it is. I don't remember which restaurant it is. So yeah, that certainly is something that they could do if they wanted to, right?
Yes,
And I'm sure people would be
that
very happy to see you. You
would
put on a fast food worker uniform, right, and go back into the circle.
that would also be an opportunity to actually interview the contestant in real time.
Right. I think the issue might be is that they get this whole fear of interference from the outside. If you want,
Well,
and again, the difference between a UK season where it's already being aired in real time, so you get to know a bit about these people. I think the fear is that you could come in and start telling people, oh, you shouldn't trust this person, or whatever. They might not be so keen of that.
You would have to have some particularly clever individual who was trusted not to do that sort of thing.
Right.
I propose myself.
I think you should be the mascot. I think they should put you on all the seasons. I mean, so the thing about having a host, so France, it doesn't seem really had a host. You know what? I'm looking at, rather than, let's try, do we want to try to get through the rest of this, or should we just, let's go very quick. Let's get very quickly up to episode 12, because that's where all the payoff is. So I'm just trying to think. So we get.
I was fascinated, by the way, in the truth game.
Yes.
How was it Paolo? Paolo was asked whether or not he was Plato or a plant. I didn't get the truth game, by the way. I was so confused by juice or water. Their image of Plato was a Greek Orthodox icon. I thought that was quite extraordinary. I can think of so many images of Plato that I would find. And a painting based on the work of Photius Kondoglu is not
right. So rather than getting so they just think Greek, and they use something that was Greek Orthodox rather than like a piece from ancient Greece.
It really was an image of Plato, but it was something done in the 4th century. Well, it was done in the 20th century, but it was based on sort of 4th century prototypes. So 4th century AD rather than 4th century BC.
Right.
Anyway, where are we? Gay.
Okay, let's go this game quickly. Is there anything it's okay? This is the so that they can actually nothing but the truth that you can actually the way it starts is that somebody you get to each person there's a question or a choice for each person, right? You have to choose between two, and just laying the groundwork of this. And so this is not anonymous. So like you said, for Valeria, they ask, is Valeria flat water or multivitamin juice?
Yes, you see, I just didn't get the idea that this was a metaphor. So I was thinking, what's the difference? I would have been completely lost by this.
Yeah, I also, even though I did understand what they were after, I mean, were they saying, to me, it would work better if it was more targeted. Because really the question is like, is Valeria boring? And we haven't seen anything that makes us think that Valeria is boring. Right. No. So then that what makes it a silly question. Whereas if you had a contestant who is kind of one note,
right, really
then it might make more sense.
Yeah.
And we did see a little bit of that later, like the thing with Nelia, when they say, is she a forked-tongued viper or a straight shooter?
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes,
and Valeria is calling her a snake. And I think she's been called a snake in the past. So I think that with some of them, that was the case, that they were kind of, like you said, all of these games, the whole reason the game is there is to stir stuff up, like you said, to create drama so that they can make a TV show.
Absolutely. And basically those nasty questions tend to occur at the end. So if you get the question right at the beginning of the game, you're relatively safe. If you're getting the question at the end, you're going to get a real humdinger.
Now, I just not to mess with your mind a little bit. Again, it's just somebody who has a little bit of familiarity with how these shows get made. I wouldn't necessarily assume that these things took place in the order in which you saw them.
Maybe not.
I think it's entirely possible that the questions that got more, created more drama were edited to be put at the end. For what it's worth.
You would want to put them up.
Right. But I'm trying. So other than that, so what? But what were the takeaways from that game, if any? Was there anything that we didn't already know?
No, I think there was nothing new.
The only thing I think that was important was with Virginie, she uses it as when they talk about Ro and whether he's a shepherd or the flock of sheep, she uses it to kind of say, I hope that you're going to protect your new you, right? So she is using it to signal that she wants to be part of his.
She wants to be his you.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've already seen before that he was trying to reel her in, but to me, that showed me that at least she was seeing herself as a member of that group.
And was it Adrian who was asked if he was a plant?
Yeah, it was Paolo was asked, right?
Oh, it's Paolo, and then he says, "Well, maybe I'm a little bush."
Yes.
which I thought Paolo was one of the more interesting characters, I must confess. So I was rather sorry to see him go.
Yes.
And more than that, if you go to my Instagram feed, you'll see of all the characters that I had an opportunity of drawing, he's the one I drew. And I just thought he had light and shade. There was a lot more three-dimensional character there, and I thought there was something I could get hold of there.
Yeah, and I do think that he was trying to play, but again, just it's the combination of coming in late.
Yep.
And again, possibly not seeing initially or immediately that there is this one alliance, right, that he needs to. And if you can't break into it, then you have to bring it down. I think he saw all of that. I don't know if he saw it too late, or if it just was too late. Even when he came in, that I don't know.
Yes.
But anyway, so we have another after that game, we have another round of voting. Now this one is another rule change. This is the one where there's no influencers. It's just you simply vote and the least popular person is automatically blocked.
Yep.
Okay. So Paolo does do something here. And this is the thing that maybe makes me think for the first time. Again, I thought that it was not that I thought he was a bad player, but this was the move that made me realize that what might have been was that he was smart enough to, even though there's been a lot of discussion about the fact that they need to work together, Paolo actually rates Nelia last because he says, I'm in trouble right now. It's clear after this game that he's in trouble. So if I can make her come in last, right, then I will be saved. And it's a good move, right? It doesn't work. But now, again, I'm assuming that you would be opposed to that, right? Because it's not really a mark of their popularity. This is pure gameplay. This is pure gameplay.
I'm quite happy with that. Quite happy.
Okay.
With that. Yeah. To protect yourself, keep yourself in the game. Yeah.
So then it's all right.
Other people,
Right.
you could mark other people down. I don't mind that at all.
Right.
Yeah. The notes I've made, the next note that I've got is beyond Paolo's eviction.
Yes.
Which is to say, I found quite sad.
Yeah.
And I thought his interaction when he does the visit was interesting.
You mean when he met Nelia, you mean?
Yes, I didn't feel it was as warm as it could have been. I thought him sort of stumbling on the stool was quite entertaining.
Yeah. Is it possible, again, because right, we've had other reunions that, again, were much more heartwarming. Is it possibly just because these two didn't have much of a relationship in the game either, right? So there was nothing to really latch onto and fall in love.
I was going to see them as opposed to some of the other players.
No, so who do you think he should have gone to see?
Well, I think I think anybody with any sense would have gone to see Roman.
Right, and just like to figure out why?
No, but because he's clearly the leader of the. He's the sort of the figurehead of the show, really.
Right. But at that point, you've already been eliminated, right? It's not that you're doing something for your game, unless you want to use this as a game move. The other thing is, again, is it possible that he was doing it? The argument for going to somebody like Nalea is you can use it as an opportunity to give them some game pointers. Like in this case, he sits down with Nalea and says something again. It's nothing that they hadn't said before, but that basically, look, we really need to stick together. You really need to take down the three.
Yeah, and he started giving advice. None of it seemed very, very thought through. It just seemed that he's got to say something at this particular moment, so he then did.
Well, I thought it was not so different from what they were already doing. It was just kind of, I think they knew that it might be futile. It was like, I think he's even saying when he's advising it, that like, look, this may not work, but it's your only option. So try.
So he wasn't going there to give a specific message. He and Virginia, both, by the time they got blocked, they were both very negative about the show itself. She actually said she would like to block all 7.
Right.
And I think
Virginia,
I think he said something similar. It doesn't say they're all hypocrites or something like that. But he's quite negative about the whole cast.
Right.
Or maybe I'm projecting something there, but and equally, he knew he was going. He was saying that he was so outspoken. He came out with these very, very strange statements, and I don't think I wrote them all down because I was just so. I was so shocked by what he was doing. It was as if he was signing his own sort of departure. He knew what he'd done.
Right, I think he did. I think that's exactly. I think he did know what he had done, and he knew that it was probably going to be him.
Yeah, and it was as if he just wanted to leave.
It's certainly possible.
And today I drew my picture and I thought, oh, we'll put it on Instagram and we'll draw a link to him, and I can't find him.
Interesting.
What's your things? Oh dear.
I actually have not even checked out any of these people's social media because I don't speak French.
No.
So I really can't even tell you. But
I think he doesn't feel that he had a bad experience because I think he came across very well.
Yeah.
And I would like him to know that.
And as I said, like if nothing else, he was really playing again from almost with a stacked deck, and he did well. And again, he's also somebody who's very young, and he didn't do badly. I'm not sure. I mean, there are things he could have done. Obviously, he could have not said all the things that he said at that point. But again, he may have already just felt that that he was on borrowed time anyway, and he just wanted to say his truth.
Yes.
Not great for his game, but it happened. So this next game, I think, is important. This is one of these games where when they do the video, they call it the Circle Challenge, and that you can win a video from home.
Oh,
and you can also.
Horrible. I found that
Sorry,
horrible.
this is okay.
Surely in the previous series, everybody who was there got a video from home.
Right. And this time they used it as a prize.
Yeah, I just thought that was horrible.
Horrible just because it was cruel for them because they've been locked up and they can't see the video?
It was vicious and cruel that you might have a video from home, but only if.
Right.
And someone else is going to be able to control you. And I think that's the point at which Roman turned, and I would have turned as well. He felt that he was denied that video.
Right. And that was certainly, I was going to say, this is one of those games where generally these games don't really influence the game all that much. I mean, these little in-game games don't generally influence the big game all that much, but this one obviously does because of something that was, I think, basically maybe even started as a misunderstanding. Right. And Valeria, so remember that Valeria didn't even want to win that particular game, right? She saw very initial, and that this is a way that this could be a way that people get very upset. And she just didn't want to have any part of it. And I think she's right, because again, we have seen on other reality TV shows, people get very, very cranky when they don't get to have access to their families. So she again decides that she doesn't want to have to make this decision. And then she actually makes an arithmetic error and ends up winning. Right. And so when she had to decide whether to give a video to Roro or Alea, right? She makes the decision that she says, I'm sorry, you're breaking up on me. I'm not sure if you're trying to say something. Are you still there?
I am still there.
Okay.
I think we're back in contact again. This is because I'm being powered by the dreadful virtual media.
Oh, okay. Right. So she decides that, since Alea's a woman, she's more likely to be more emotional about this. I'm going to give the video to her, and Roro will understand. And clearly the problem was that Roro did not understand. And my question with this also was this, again, because this might be the first piece of her gameplay that I would criticize, but was the answer to this was to simply, she couldn't do it in advance, but immediately at the end of the game, right, to check in with Roman and just say, and explain why she made the decision that she did.
Yes, I think,
and he could still have been upset, but again, based on what we've seen, we don't see any sign that she tried to do that.
There was another girl who didn't contact Roman afterwards to apologize, and he made a comment about it. I can't remember who it was.
Right.
So he was genuinely upset by this. It changed the whole character of his performance.
And then I would argue this was kind of a whole lot of nothing. And it's possible that if they had had more material in these episodes, I'm not even sure if we would necessarily have seen it, because we go through this whole series of, the next morning he's still upset and, he's going to flip and the whole game is going to, and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But clearly this could have gone very badly.
I think it was going very badly. And I think this was a very cruel, and I think it was a very cruel game. And it
just the idea, not the idea that certainly people get to. Okay, so let me give you the counter argument here, because again, this is one of those things that always happens when people watch these TV shows, is that you've been in there for a month max, right? It hasn't been years since you've seen your family. You know that this is all going to be over within a few days. Why is this? And I mean, and by the way, many people agree with you, but again, but in Survivor and Big Brother and in other shows, people tend to be kind of dismissive of the idea that you can miss your family so much that it would influence your game after you've only been away, for a few weeks. So do you feel that it's because of the stresses of the game, or do you just feel in general? Because you're reacting to this very strongly, and you have been in the apartments and I haven't. So I'm trying to understand.
And I don't think it's specifically about missing your family. I think it's the fact that this prize of access to the outside world, of access to your family, is offered and taken away. That's what I find so dangerous. And so it's egregiously unpleasant.
Interesting.
It is the first thing that I've seen in the circle, which I think makes me very, very uncomfortable about the circle itself. It's the first thing.
I'm not. We're not going to take the time of this now on the podcast. I will send you the link later. But we were discussing this a little bit about, Johnny Fairplay, the owner, founder, and general poobah of Survivor NSFW, is obviously famous. Not obviously for you, but obvious for the rest of our audience. Is famous for a move, that was taken to take advantage of this whole idea of the family visit, and kind of turn it on its head and use it for a game purpose. So I will send you that link and we can have that conversation. But again, this is something but many shows use this again because it is a way to pull on the heartstrings of both the contestants and the audience.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Well, you see, up till now, up to seeing this series, I thought the circle was setting itself apart and leading the way in a different sort of reality television, and I still think it probably is, and I think it's this is not it's not a game to be proud of at all.
Right. And I feel like I hear yes.
However, there is a little event which occurs around about that time, which I think it merits a lot more sort of comment, which is Nelia's photograph.
Yes. So we skipped over this, but there was they were able to put up a third picture, and Nelia put up a. But it's interesting. She was other people put up bathing suit pics also and didn't have the same reaction. So why this pic in particular did you react to so strongly?
So much more entertaining and so much more exciting. Why did she get it? It wasn't simply a reaction of one or two people didn't like it. The entire company disliked it.
Right, but do you feel like that was really about the photo itself, or do you think that was more just about what they thought of Nelia as a character /
It may have been what they thought about her as a character. It may have been political,
right?
But I thought there was something quite interesting. But whereas the other characters were putting up a photograph which took their story forward,
right?
That photograph, in a sense, was simply reasserting the image that Nelia wanted to establish from the first at the beginning.
Right.
Pretty girl.
Right.
And it wasn't telling us anything new. And I would love to know whether or not the other contestants were just thinking, oh, for God's sake, find something else to say,
Right. But I think that might, again, just be their reaction to her, because you could say the same thing about, the last time they put up pictures. And I think both Ines put up a picture and Alea, and it was just it was a full body shot. It was a pretty picture. Same thing, like I said, didn't really add much. But I don't feel like she got the same reaction.
Yes, well, didn't Lou fall foul of the same sort of thing right at the beginning of the show?
Right. Well, but I think we talked. I think there's a big difference also between the first pick versus the subsequent ones. Right. Yes. I feel like for the first pick, you want to be very careful. Whereas as a third pick, yes, like I said, it's kind of in your face. It's very body conscious, etc. But I saw this reaction by everybody else as more. It tells to me it said more to me about the rest of the cast than it did about Nelia. That was just me.
I think it did say a great deal about the rest of the cast. But I think by that point in the show,
Right.
Nelia might have or ought to have been aware that that mood was there.
Oh, she definitely was. I mean, I think she knew. I mean, she was well aware that she kept coming in last, but she was also aware that she wasn't going home.
Yeah.
Right. And we've seen that, and that happened again twice more in the episodes we were watching today. So let me just before let me just ask you this, because this is something I would like your input on. How do you feel about the fact that again nobody gave her a like? What again? This is something that I've discussed with other people, but in a case like this, should you just like the damn picture? I mean, are you alienating somebody for no reason by not liking the pic?
I just think it's extraordinary that all 5 of them just didn't like it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think if I had been there,
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have liked it, but because I think I would have been thinking, oh my goodness. I mean, the picture didn't do anything for me. I didn't give me any new information.
Right.
But
you still would have liked it, right? Just because, again, to me, it is a low cost way of, building relationships.
And not looking completely foolish. I think it's extraordinary that they all took that decision, because it was quite a daring decision not to like that.
Right, and then especially given that when you see that nobody is liking it,
yeah,
right? Then again, I would be very tempted, even if she wasn't somebody who I was playing with, to kind of step in and like it again, maybe even just on a human level.
Yeah.
Right. Like I said, on the one hand, I'm willing to play this game and do whatever I have to do. On the other hand, if this is not hurting my game and I can spare somebody from embarrassment, I think I would do it.
Yes.
And let's even say, and then you go to your alliance, you say, yes, obviously we hate her. Obviously we want her to go home. But, this is not a sign that I am suddenly flipping over to Nelia's side. I just wanted to like her photo.
Let's move on to our end play.
Okay, so right, so we'll get there. So we've got the last ratings, last 2 influencers. This determines the finalists, right? Now this was interesting. So Ro is still upset, but what does he do? He keeps saying that the team is dead. Team winner is dead, right? I'm flipping, so I'm gonna rank Valeria second.
Yes,
right, and I just laughed, right.
And Valeria takes it personally and is very sensitive.
Well, Valeria thinks this whole thing, I think, is kind of silly, right? That he reacted this way to the video. But I do think, but from that standpoint, I do take his side. And it could have very easily been remedied. But to do something like this and not reach out and make it clear that this was not a deliberate choice, either on a game level or on a personal level. Right. The point is, we've spoken about this before. Could have been remedied, was never remedied. So I am sympathetic to where Roro is from right now, and I understand that Valeria was just, over it. But I felt that was a little too harsh. I think she could have been a little bit more open to the idea. And again, this guy is crazy about you, right? And then given the opportunity, you get a prize that you can share with one person. Even Gabriel says, "Aren't they supposed to be together?"
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But anyway, so we have our last ratings. Nelia comes in last again, of course. Then Gabriel's 5, Valeria's 4, Virginia's 3, and the influencers are Elia and Ro.
Yes.
I felt it interesting. I mean, it would have been fascinating if Virginia would have been one of the influencers.
Oh, that would have changed everything.
Absolutely.
But what I found fascinating was how Virginia's fate was sealed almost in the first moment of that influencer talk.
Yes.
Where Elia just says that she's vicious or something. What was the line?
Oh yeah, well, because there was that whole conversation before where again Virginia was, and she could, again, completely unnecessary, right? She could have just, she really kind of attacked Alea and everybody else. Like we saw, well, she did it also. They all, before that meeting, we saw everybody go running to Alea, right, trying to be saved. So she knew that she had gone too far.
But Virginia is also dismissive of the entire company.
Oh yeah.
that point that she says she'd like to eliminate all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was eliminate tous.
I think she was just, I just see that as kind of as a figure of speech, right? She's coming into this game, and I do feel like she's the kind of person who could have been a player. She wanted to be a player, right? She comes in very late. And she actually almost kind of pulled it off, right? In terms of being brought in by.
She was quite aggressive throughout, and I don't think.
Oh, she's very aggressive, right? And like we saw also with Nalea, right? That does not seem to go over well.
No, you can only be aggressive if you come in at the beginning, and even then it's a risky
and even
strategy.
then I feel like it's risky, right?
Yeah, because you are the aim of the game is to be popular,
right? But let me ask you then something.
Let
me play devil's advocate then.
Mm-hmm.
If you are coming in so late, as Virginia did, again to the extent that I'm not even sure that anybody should have to come in episode 9 or 10, but I would kind of then again, being devil's advocate, I put on that hat and argue that maybe she had to do this. Maybe that was her only choice, right? There was no way that she was going to win the game if she didn't do something to shake everything up and get everybody's attention. It didn't work.
This is where I would say the winning of the game is not necessarily should not necessarily be your major objective. Look, if you're coming in week 9. Mm-hmm. Or in day 9, and you've got sort of 3 or 4 more episodes to go,
right?
It's unlikely you're going to win.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to present yourself to the audience? Do you want to present yourself as somebody bashing your fist against the window mm-hmm. and going out as well? Not so it's a completely pointless activity. You just look like a mad person. Or do you want mm-hmm. to go out as somebody who is winsome and charming and everybody likes, at least out in the television world? Even if you can't see it in the circle, you're going to be liked outside.
I hear all that, but I think that again, this poor woman has been, locked up for weeks, right? She's not playing the game. She's not on TV, but she's probably living the same life where she's been in an apartment. They finally bring her in. They let her in there, right? She's raring to go. And I do think that, again, that most people who go on a show, again, you are unusual in this, that most people, you're willing to put your life on hold, like, to play a game like this. You go in there because you want to win. I think I've lost Professor Tim. So anyway, the point is I don't blame Virginia at all for that. And maybe she, again, and this is just something that came to me, but perhaps this was her only chance. Maybe she had to play this way, or maybe this is just who she is. Not sure. But interesting. I just kind of assumed that she was going to go right back out. That there was but if she had, but she almost didn't. I mean, if she had not had that dust up with Alea, I think she might have made the finals. Okay, so we have Professor Tim is going to come right now. Sorry, we're having some technical issues.
I'm so sorry about this.
It's all right. It's all right. It happens.
Rather like Eve in the Garden of Eden, I blame Apple. Sorry.
So anyway, we have Ro and Alea in the hangout. They save Valeria. Again, this whole idea about him flipping on them was very short-lived. Then they decide again quite quickly to save Nalea, which I found interesting because again, she's just been at the bottom so many times. But I think she's been getting along with people better, it seems.
Yeah.
And she's been a little bit more self-effacing and done a little bit of apologizing. And
do you think it's possible that girls get a sort of an extra life? Do you think there's a gender bias there?
I could be open to it, but explain. What are you saying exactly? You were saying that's why she's survived. Oh, you're saying that Nalea has survived because it's a female character.
Yeah. If she were a boy, I don't think she would be given the license.
It's funny you're saying that. I would flip it on you, and I would say that if she were a boy, if the character were a boy, I feel like some of her behavior would not have been nearly as much a big deal. I feel like part of Nalea, part of her problem is that she's not behaving in what we think of as a traditionally feminine way.
Exactly. And so, and this is part of the problem with catfishing.
Hmm.
You can't get over. It's so difficult to get over that gender divide, and the sort of not the sort of behaviour that is not the sort of behaviour that comes with gender, but the behaviour that is seen to be appropriate to the gender.
Right.
It's perception,
Right.
and
Right. Clearly, women and men behave over there's a long, but like I said, but in terms of what's considered to be appropriate for each gender is very
yes,
different. And it would be really interesting to go back and kind of analyze Nalea's game and all of the messages she sent or whatever, and say, okay, if the character had not been a woman, right, would she have gotten the reactions that she got?
yes.
Because again, the character's being played by two guys,
Yep.
right, who might not have fully realized,
And do you
right, that if a woman behaves this way, it can be problematic.
do you think two people playing one character have an advantage as well?
That could
That's
go
not.
either way. I mean, I would have said before the twins, I would have said absolutely not. If anything, it hinders you, right? Because you have two people, you have to work everything out. There's much more of a chance for conflict, right? And we've seen several other. We had Ed and his mom, right? Other people where it was clear that she was not helping him in the slightest.
Absolutely.
And even with the twins in
boys.
Brazil, right? I'm not sure, but these boys in particular, yes, like I said, this might be the first time where I can look at it and say, yes, obviously there's also stress involved again, because the whole idea, what we're dealing with right now, the stresses of being isolated alone versus the stresses being alone, being isolated with a family member, right?
Yes.
So in their case, yes, that even given all of that, they seem to get along well. And it does seem, like we discussed before, that they seem to have different areas of expertise.
Yes.
As you will. And so I do think that this is a case where it may have actually helped them.
That they prepared so many of their activities, like the huge bit of paper on the doorway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And so you're absolutely, they should be writing articles right now on how to survive quarantine, because they seem to be having a lot more fun than I am.
They were just vibrant.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, can we move on to that final moment?
Please, yeah. So anyways, yeah, so Virginie goes home, and we have our final five, and they finally get to meet.
Yes, and at that point, the preparing to meet, and then the going off to meet.
Yes.
I felt the whole program changed. I felt that was the program. That was the point, really, at which I would like to start watching the program. Genuinely start watching the program. Suddenly, I had access to real characters that I liked,
and maybe it's because the competition at that point is over, right? The decisions have been made. Now they're just going to meet as people.
Yes, but I think it was more than that. I think there was a genuine desire for friendship at that point,
right?
And that really should have been there all the way through the show, and I don't think it was. And I think because the games play took over from the actual agenda, which is to be friends, which is to be popular. And if you lose sight of that, actually you start to destroy the show. And so I think it's really important. I found the French show quite difficult to watch. And then when we got to episode 12, I just thought, oh my goodness, I wish this episode would go on. And then we unplugged a plug. Netflix died and couldn't be restarted.
Right, because you didn't get. Tim told me before we started that he was not able to see the very last bit.
The very last few moments of that episode, the one episode I really enjoyed, have been denied me. And I feel, this is an act of God, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. No, but that moment where Valeria and Roro finally met, I felt was really one of the best reality TV moments that I have seen in a very long time.
I think it was.
Right. And even though we've seen that, like you said, we saw James and Sammy, we have seen other people who are catfishing, and they've had to confront the person that they are deceiving. But this was so wonderful. I think just because of Ro's reaction, that the way that he was just laughing, right? He would take his breath and he would think about it for a minute, and it would hit him again.
Yeah.
Right. It could have been unpleasant, right? It could have been, and certainly we saw this a little bit with Alex and Dan, right? I mean, they got there. But initially, sorry?
Yes, that one took time.
But it took some time, right? Whereas it seemed, at least, and even that, and Dan had given us some indication that he knew that maybe Kate wasn't Kate, whereas Ro gave us none of that, and yet somehow seemed to have, again, just immediately went to that place where we'd like everybody to get to, but these people are human, where he just realized, I got, right? Somebody taking advantage of me, and hats off to her.
And didn't you feel it was so life affirming?
Yes, that was so wonderful to see. And the other thing that I found really interesting, because this I wasn't necessarily assuming, but when Valeria said, because I mean, so Rose says, I fell for you, right? And we all knew that, right? It was nice that he had admitted that. But then Valeria said, I started to fall for you too. Right. Absolutely. Valeria, who knows that she is, just a character being played by Maxim, right? That he also, which is weird and wonderful. And I loved it. And I believed it.
Stanislavski. It is the method writ large. It was lovely to see. I also thought Valeria's, Maxim's body language echoed that of Alex. So if you play one and you play this, he sort of doubles over each time a new character comes in, and does this. And I think it must be some sort of instinctive thing. It's quite extraordinary. But what I found so refreshing and so brilliant, and so hats off to the Circle people, really, for staging this. Is you have that first moment with Valeria and Romain, and then you have the twins coming in at the end, which is some you think you can't have more of a good thing, and then you get more of a good thing,
and then the other one comes in. That was very cute. Where one of them, again, we don't know which, came in. And they jumped early on.
Before they come in, one of them says something to the other, and then he goes in on his own, and you see that there's a sort of plan that they've set this up for the group. And
and clearly with all of this series, it's very clear that they think very hard about in which order they are going to come in and how they are going to sit.
Well, no, that's the production. But what I loved was that the contestants seemed to be planning this as well, and they had got their own agenda. You're going to go in there first, and then I will come in. Right. And I thought that element of understanding, was.
Well, you're assuming that they made that decision. I'm assuming that might very well have been a production decision.
It may have been a production decision, but it comes across as their decision.
Either way, it was lovely. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Beautifully arranged, dramatic, and the overall sense of joy that came out of that episode.
Yes,
particularly as it was set up with this sort of negative arc, with Romain feeling that he'd been betrayed by Valeria.
Right.
I thought was one of the most, as you say, I think probably one of the most refreshing pieces of film to come out of the whole Circle oeuvre. And it is definitely up there with Alex and Dan.
Right. But I like this even better because I really do feel like Alex and Dan was just uncomfortable. It was difficult to watch, at least for me. Whereas I didn't have any of that. I mean, it easily could have happened, but because of the way that they both reacted, it wasn't.
It was joyous.
It really was. And like I said, I wish I read French so that I could actually do a bit of research on this and figure out, are they in fact friends? What happened afterward? All of that.
Well, I hope
anybody, if there are any viewers who do read French and want to do some research, and do some translation for me, or just or give me links in French, and I can always try Google Translate. I'd love to hear it because I really would like to be able to spy on this cast a little bit.
Yeah, equally, if Romain and Valeria would like to get in touch with me, I would be so delighted, and it would be a real joy. I just wish that character that we'd seen in that final episode, we'd seen all the way through the show.
Right. Well, and Tim, just for what it's worth, I'm assuming you have some phone numbers from production, so you could probably make this work a lot more easily than I could. But if you do find them, if you do hear from them, obviously let me know.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just go quickly through the reunion so that how do you feel about the way that they did this? Because again, they keep doing the finale and reunion differently. In this case, they don't even have a host, right?
Well,
they put all the blocked players into a room, and then they bring in the final five one at a time, and they get a little bit. I wish they could have spent a little bit more time on this, of people's reactions to, because again, 3 of the 5 cast are catfish, which has never happened before.
Yes.
But we don't really see so much of that. And then they also do something interesting in terms of the rankings, and I wanted to know what you thought of this, that rather than just having the top 5 rate each other, what they did was they took the last 3 people to be eliminated, right? Last time they were full cast. So this is Ines, Paolo, and Virginie. And they allowed them to also rank, but then they combined their rankings into one ranking. So as if there were 6 people voting.
No, I haven't seen this, so I don't.
Oh, okay. So that's what they did.
Right.
They announced that those 3 were also able to rank, and they were combined. So query whether that would have influenced the outcome. Obviously it could have, because again, so you may not know this also. So then when they announce the results, Valeria was number 5.
Yes.
And I found that kind of surprising.
I found it very odd. Yes.
But again, I'm sure we discussed this when we did Brazil, but let me just go through the results quickly. It's Valeria, 4 is Nelia, 3 is Gabriel, 2 is Elea, and Roman 1. Okay. So what do you think of that result? Are you surprised by it? Do you think it could have been influenced by having the last 3? And I'm losing Tim yet again. So I'll tell you what I think about it. I found it interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about having those last 3 rank, just because I don't know what, if anything, they had access to before they made that decision. If they were able to see, let's say they got access to the circle chat, and they could see maybe not the DMs, but at least what was happening, the things that were public in the game. Had they had access to those, then at least they would have had a little bit more information to work with. That's what's making me concerned. But I don't hate it. And I am quite chuffed with the results. Tim seems to be trying to get it back in here. So I was going to give him a minute. So the question is, here he is. Tim is back.
Okay.
Here we go. You're back. It's fine. It happens. So my question was, we were talking about this whole idea about letting these last 3 vote, and then also just in a larger sense, the whole question of the strategy, if you will, for this final vote, right? How do you vote in such a way that the person that you want to win wins? Because, and we saw some of that even earlier in this season, it started to happen. But there is kind of this inception thing happening where you don't just have to figure out, you obviously have to figure out how you want to rank people. And you're thinking then about how other people are ranking. But then you also have to think about how you, like I said, it twists in on itself very rapidly, right? Because your reactions are in itself influencing.
Right, but I think it ceases to be a popularity contest at this point. So therefore, right. I think the idea of having the members of the apartments voting at all in that final vote must be wrong. It's misguided. I think that's the point, which it has to go to a public vote in some form.
Right. Well, I was going to say, I could see the public vote. The thing with this is that I don't know what information they had access to. If they were able to see, let's say that they were able to see the circle chats going all the way to the end or whatever, then at least they would be having more information than if they've just been, like I said, they've been blocked and they haven't seen anything. Yes. So suddenly they have to make this decision.
If they've seen the circle chats as they are broadcast on the episodes, then they're seeing an edited version of that.
Well,
I
that's
see.
you're saying with the British version and the public vote, yes.
The other members see.
Right. But I'm just saying, let's say we're not doing a public vote because, again, the way the game is structured, unless something changes, right, we're not going to have public votes outside of the UK because
Yeah.
Netflix doesn't seem to be interested in doing a release schedule. And obviously, and even if they would have to completely change the way that they're filming, right, because they'd be releasing the episodes as they're filmed and all of that. But it doesn't seem that that's going to be an option going forward. But it is an option for the UK, and I don't know. Have you heard anything? Again, you have connections to these people. Have there been any thoughts or any communications about any ways? First of all, is there going to be a season 3, and if so, are they planning any changes?
I know that there are plans for a season 3 in Britain. Whether coronavirus will get in.
Well, that's another question. Even with the US, where they were officially picked up for seasons 2 and 3 a couple of weeks ago, and so they are casting, but they always have this little asterisk that they basically say, because of coronavirus, we don't know exactly when this is going to happen, but we are going to proceed with casting.
Yep. Yeah, and the same thing is happening. But in some sense, even if the lockdown is in force in some form, I think of a show that is more suitable for filming in this.
Well, this is my thing is I don't know that they could film because I don't think the issue is the contestants, right? Because this came up with Big Brother Canada. Big Brother was filming a season, and Big Brother, just tell you very quickly, you put 16 or 18 people in a house. This is being filmed in real time to the extent that you can even watch what they call live feeds. You can just see the raw footage of certain cameras at certain times. But you are filming this, and then they release, a certain number of edited episodes every week. And so so they started the season, I think it was in mid-February. Anyway, things were normal when it started and they became less normal. But there was discussions about shutting it down. But the argument is the people themselves are the safest people in the world, right? Because they're not interacting with anybody. But the issue is production, right? Let's say that they wanted to do another season of The Circle. You grab a bunch of people, you put them in the apartments, they're fine. But then again, you still have all of these production workers who have to be able to go back and forth to work. I think that's the concern. And the camera people and the sound people and all of the other people that have to be involved.
Are all automatic. So there are no camera people.
It is all automatic.
All automatic.
So I was going to say, so how many production people do you estimate were involved? Like just at the time of filming, like I said, the things that you were aware of. I mean, are there 100 people running about, or are there 10? Because that does make a huge difference.
I think even I think it's quite a significant number. I didn't meet them all, of course.
Right.
But each contestant is looked after by a group.
Right. So that's my point, is that I think the fear is that it would be dangerous for production to film before all of this is over, not necessarily the contestants. But I do feel like when they are ready to start filming things, this should be one of the things that they can get up and running very quickly. And I think that's probably why they are trying to do casting, because as soon as these things seem to be settled down, especially in the UK where nobody even has to travel internationally, right? It seems to me that they could get this going with, I don't know, a few weeks notice even.
Probably, and I think your concerns about production can be resolved because really what you're looking for, as I understand it, is each individual contestant in order to make it as fair as possible, I think,
right,
effectively has their own editing group. So that group may not necessarily know what is being edited by another group.
Right.
So
each character has certain editors that are assigned to them, you're saying?
I believe so, yes.
Interesting.
And then there is, of course, an overall editor and director. So I see no reason why they all need to be in the same building, for example. So
the editors don't need to be. right? But I'm just, like I said, I was just trying to focus on the people who are actually in that building when it is being filmed.
Oh, there don't need to be that many people in the
Look,
building.
I would love them to do it, right? I mean, we're about to head into a long period where there will be no new entertainment by and large. Right, and I'd love to see it. But I am just concerned that, this is still a television show, and I don't know that we want to be risking anybody's health over it. But however, but when it is time to start loosening things up, I do think, well, we will see a lot of reality TV show, because the same thing happened also. There was a writer's strike, Professor Tim, at one point in about 10 or 12 years ago in the US. And so a lot of the scripted television, they were not in production because all the writers went on strike. And so what happened was that a lot of new reality TV programs were born because they wanted to get fresh content out, but they couldn't get anybody to actually write a show. And in practice, there are also people writing a reality show, but it's written in a different way. It's really, and the writing happens in the editing room, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. And in setting up tasks which are likely to produce particular results.
Right.
And so the writing is much more fluid.
Right. But my point is that I'm saying, in a situation like this where you want to make a show quick / cheap / etc. That's one of the reasons that reality TV has become so popular. It is in general very cheap to make. And this show in particular, now that they have rented or purchased that building and done all of the things that they need to do to make it soundproof, etc., putting another season together should take very little time.
Absolutely.
And so I am hoping that we will start to see, again, several reaction. And I'm hoping also that they're going to spread this to other countries, because any country who is familiar with social media, right, should have a market for this.
Yeah. I would love to see a Russian and Greek version. I would love to host a Greek version, I must say. Or a Turkish version. I think a Turkish version would be.
Well, like I said, you have connections to Studio Lambert, right? Pick up the phone and tell these people. Seriously, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
There we are.
Right? They know that you're the fan favorite. All right. So, Tim, I'm going to have you ask for your, you don't even do it now. Why don't you tell us your social media, right? Where people can find you, all that. And then Tim and I are going to be making an announcement.
Yes.
So where can people find all of your drawings and all of these other things that you keep speaking of?
So you can find me on Instagram on Professor_Tim_Wilson, or on YouTube with my film company, which is called Zontul Films Limited, ZONTUL FILMS LTD, all one word. Zontul means high mountain. It's my partner's name. And you'll find I put up new content. I think that's what it's called, isn't it?
Yes, content.
Regularly, certainly once or twice a week on YouTube, and the same sort of amount on Instagram. Sometimes a lot more, actually. I'm doing stuff on Edward Lear, which is very exciting. I have Twitter as well, which I think is Prof. Wilson.
Oh, you do. You do have Twitter now. What is your Twitter?
I think it's Prof_Tim_Wilson.
I'll find you. I haven't even looked because I wasn't aware that you had Twitter.
Okay. Do I have anything else? Is there anything else?
You're asking me. I think that's about it. But if you do want to see more, you want to see more of Professor Tim, there's going to be a lot more Professor Tim on Survivor NSFW. Because we have an announcement to make. Now that the circle has been wrapped up, at least for the time being, until we get new seasons, we are going to start a new program called Survivor Rewind, where we are going to go back and watch old seasons. But in only cases where we feel like we can add something to the discussion. So the first season of this will be Survivor Rewind. Tim watches Borneo. Professor Tim, as we know, even though he has been on reality TV, really has not seen very much of it. So he has agreed to watch Borneo, the first season of Survivor US, and give us his thoughts about it and what it says about reality TV as a whole. And we're hoping we will be bringing in guests, also including hopefully some of the cast members from Borneo and other seasons of Survivor. We will be getting started with this in 2 weeks on May 12th, and we're hoping to do it in the same time slot of 2 p.m. Eastern US, 7 p.m. in the UK. Obviously, there will be announcements on my Twitter, say Karen Talks a Lot, and many other places. But this is our thought, which is it's pretty actually difficult for me and my circles to find somebody who, for the last 20 years, hasn't really watched any reality TV. But Tim, I mean, you've already said you've let it know to me that you have found this interesting, right? And that you have, and the fact that you were picked to play this, it does seem as really had a big influence on what you want to do next.
Yes, absolutely. So really, come and join me in my continued education. But also come and join us on May the 12th, because there's another reason why we want to have lots and lots of people there on May the 12th, because it's my birthday.
Oh, that's right. So we will have a huge
our
birthday party for Professor Tim.
Yeah.
And we are going to, and so if anybody needs help figuring out how to watch Borneo, if you are in the US, the easiest way to watch it is if you get yourself a membership to CBS All Access. That should give you option to see all of these seasons. And depending on how much you'd like to pay, you can see with or without commercials. But if you do want to go back and rewatch Borneo before you listen to our discussion, that would be an option. In other countries, I'm not as helpful, but I'm sure Tim, have you been able to find a way to watch Survivor?
I haven't found access yet. I will see if
we will get you access. I will figure out a way to get you access, and then we will share it with our viewers. Okay, and then just very quickly, what else is right? So what else is
cool? There'll be a hole on May the 12th where you're expecting something. There will be nothing, but we will find a way to watch it.
We will figure it out. Don't worry. I have some ideas. We also want to invite people to join us coming up on Survivor NSFW. Johnny Fairplay and Matt Bischoff once again will be watching the new season of Survivor Winners at War and having a discussion at 9:05 p.m. Eastern every week. And on Patreon, if you decide to become a patron of Survivor NSFW, you get access to several additional podcasts every week, including the Castaway Watch Along, weekly Q&A, any other things that they decide they want to talk about. Johnny just has done a series of top 10 good guy and bad guy wrestlers. If that is your thing, you could find all of that on patreon.com. And everything else is at youtube.com/SurvivorNSFW. So we're looking forward to that. I was hoping that we were going to have the t-shirt of Survivor Rewind to be able to show you tonight, but unfortunately I have not received it yet, but it is a thing. And we can't wait to get started on. So I guess until then, Professor Tim, again, thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.